Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is JD, and I use they, them pronouns, and I am calling in from the unceded territory of the Ohlone people here in California. And I like to start with a land acknowledgement because it is part of my recognition that we are part of the earth, and the earth is in us, and this is part of are reorienting towards a sustainable way of being in the world. And our teachers, the indigenous people of the area, have really supported that understanding for so much of the planet. And so, really honoring that. I was also in New Hampshire last week, so I am not too far from you all in that area. I grew up in the North Shore in Newburyport in Massachusetts, and so I'm a frequent flyer in New England, and so it's always a joy to come back. So even though I'm not quite on your time zone, I was last week, so not that much of a stretch, although my pets really wish that I was outside with them walking right now. But what I'd like to do to start off is to invite in all of your voices. And what I'd like to do is suggest as invitations, so if you'd like to, is to add something to the chat. I'll put the prompt in here. Add something that has sparked joy in your life. Just a little thing. It could be a smile, it could be a pet, it could be just a light or a plant, or just add something in the chat that has sparked joy. So if you think of something, just something that just a small, oh, there we go, great. Laura says they're silly dogs, so that's wonderful. And so let's just take a pause for see people are writing. Mm. Thank you. Visiting a friend recently. Oh, and another visiting. Great. Daughter visiting. Oh, beautiful. So just listen to these and just take them in and, if possible, just allow your heart to feel the joy. Sharing tea and spirit animal cards with friends. 4 cats. Oh, young ones. Oh, and I have a 15-year-old cat, so 16 and a half year old cat feeling of the bird feeder for the first year and pretty Christmas lights. Thank you. One of the reasons why I invite this in is for our practice of mudita, baking for neighbors and shelters. And mudita is appreciative joy or altruistic joy, and it is really said to be one of the hardest things to practice. And it is such a sustenance for us to feel joy and other people's joy. And so you may have thought you were doing this to share your joy, but actually you're sparking joy in all the rest of us by learning and being able to be in your joy. So just feeling in that joy and others' joy is really a really powerful and beneficial nutrient for our practice. So thank you for all of that. Um, I'm going to be offering some meditation. So for those of you who, just to review, I don't know if anyone's new, but I will be offering about a 30-minute meditation, and then we'll have some teaching, and then we'll have some time for reflection and sharing at the end. And as was mentioned, I'm not very good at answering. If you chat, please chat Laura, because that will be very helpful. All right, so I'm going to invite the bell, and I'll offer some instructions during the meditation. And it may be a little different than what you usually practice with, because as Laura mentioned, I practice in the Theravadan lineage. And so please just allow yourself to practice in the way that really supports you. I invite you to begin the meditation by welcoming yourself. Taking a moment to welcome yourself here with as much friendliness as possible. Allowing yourself to arrive however you are in this moment. Welcoming the one who is here right now, the sleepy one, the anxious one, the joyful one. Meeting yourself with kindness as much as possible. And as you arrive, I invite you to let go of anything that you might be carrying from your day thus far. And perhaps by taking a deep breath and letting go on the exhale. Or maybe by allowing the shoulders to drop back and down, relaxing the neck, inviting in relaxation in any way that feels supportive for you. And as we begin our meditation, it can be supportive to bring your awareness to the weight, the sense of the connection, the weight of the body connected to the chair, the cushion beneath you. Feeling the sense of contact. Feeling our small earth bodies resting on the larger earth. Perhaps sensing into the groundedness of our bodies, being supported by the earth beneath us. And see if it's possible to connect with this sense of rest and support. Letting go of any extra tension as we're held and supported by the earth. As you bring your awareness fully into the body, you may begin to be aware of the flow of the breathing body. Feeling the air around the body. And the movement of the body as it receives this gift. Feeling the air in the body offering this gift of vitality. Expansion of the lungs, the belly. If it's supportive for you, you can invite the breath or the place of contact of the body as a home base, a touchstone, or an anchor during the meditation. Coming back, returning to the body, to the breath, as a support for the continuity of our mindfulness. Meeting ourselves with friendliness and kindness as much as possible. This practice of meditation, practicing mindfulness of the body, we become aware of the mind, the stories, plans, memories, imaginings, no problem. Come and go, arise and pass away. In this practice, we become intimate with the way things are, the landscape of the body, the heart, and the mind. Meeting ourselves, cultivating this embodied presence. This practice of mindfulness is a practice of returning, connecting, each time we're lost, when we recognize that we're lost. It's a moment of awakening, and connecting. And see if it's possible to meet yourself in each moment with as much friendliness as possible. And if you encounter the judging mind, see if you can offer kindness and friendliness to that aspect of yourself as well. And if it's supportive, using a touchstone, an anchor, the body, the breath, bringing yourself into a full sense of presence. As we come towards the end of our period of meditation, I invite you to take a moment to appreciate yourself, perhaps appreciating yourself for showing up, for the diligence of your practice, or maybe appreciating a moment where you met yourself with kindness, however you are, however you were showing up. And taking a moment to offer that appreciation. And then extending that appreciation to everyone else who's joined us to practice. Remembering with gratitude how powerful it is to have friends on the path. Kalyanamita, spiritual companions. This practice of community, of Sangha, the support of others, offering gratitude for our Sangha today. And then widening that circle of appreciation, of gratitude to include friends and family and community members who support you, perhaps taking care of your kids for you to practice, washing the dishes, offering you a meal, all the ways that we're held and supported by each other, the grocery stores, the bus drivers, those who fix the computers and all our technology, and including all those humans near and far, known and unknown, in so many ways that we are supported by the hearts and hands of so many others. All of the resources for our technology mined by unknown humans whose hearts and labors support us. Our food, our clothes, so many hearts and hands, offering gratitude to all of the humans who support us in this life. And extending that gratitude to all the blessings of the other beings, all of the animals that we share the planet, gratitude for the blessings of all the animals, gratitude for the blessings of the plants, the mushrooms, the single-celled organisms, in this web of mutuality that we are part of. And then widening the circle of gratitude, of blessings, even larger gratitude for the blessings of the earth, gratitude for the blessings of water, oceans, ponds, rain, snow, gratitude for the blessings of the soil, the minerals, the rocks, gratitude for the blessings of the air. In each moment, we are connected, and we remember that our practice is not only for ourselves, but includes this web of interconnectedness. May we remember our practice is for the benefit of all beings everywhere, known and unknown, seen and unseen. May all everywhere be free. Thank you. Thank you. I invite you to take a moment to stretch, get a drink of water, get your tea or whatever would be supportive for you, and we'll start back up in another minute. Fine. You're welcome to stay off camera, and if you could just put an emoji or something so that I know that you're back, that would be great. I can see some of you too. Thank you. Thank you. So I wanted to offer today's time together on the roots of freedom. And I have been thinking a lot about how we frame our lives. And I'm inviting us today to connect to this possibility of freedom and to remember that these roots are available as we cultivate our practice, and that we know that in each moment we can connect with these roots, that we are grounded just as plants are in the soil. We are grounded in this source of freedom, the Buddhist practice. And that as we connect with this practice of freedom, it's not only for ourselves, but through this interconnected web, we are supportive of our communities and others as well. And so I come from a long line of teachers, and I am really grateful for that. And I think a lot about teaching as storytelling. And, I bring that to mind because the Buddha, was a storyteller. And I just really appreciate reading the suttas and all of the stories that we learn. And the Buddha offers instructions, and the Buddha tailors the instructions in different stories to the communities that the Buddha is in. And there's a whole wide range of the amazing vitality of the life in the time of the Buddha. And the Buddha's offering stories to, all sorts of people, of mendicants of all different practices, to, acrobats, to those working with the cattle, and also courtesans and kings and musicians and charioteers, potters. There's just so many different images of the full richness of the life of the Buddha, as well as lots of animals. There's monkeys and snakes and, all sorts of animals in the Buddha stories. And it is the power of these stories, that have carried the lineage through time and space over 2,600 years until today. And it is these ways that we can embody and meet this teachings that allows us to continue. And it's remarkable to me that here I am, someone who grew up in Massachusetts, now lives in California, and that this teaching that originated in Asia and Southeast Asia has traveled through time and space and geography to show up here in this moment. And there's just all of these humans who have connected to these teachings, inspired and touched and moved to transform their lives moment by moment in this relational field. And I'm just so grateful that I have had the great good fortune to intersect with these teachings. And it's ironic because my teacher, Eric Kolvig, who I started off with in 1995 in New Mexico, was originally from New Hampshire, and we met in New Mexico. And it is just like that, the way that we meet and encounter the teachings, and then they become home to us. And then we become close to ourselves, and through this inner knowing and this wisdom of the Dharma that we begin to engage. And it is through this understanding that our pain and our stories and our way of being in the world are part of this fabric of the world, part of the fabric of what it means to be human. I'm also a lover not only of stories, but of books and reading. And for me, and having been somebody who grew up in an age before the internet and access to all those stories, books have been just such a foundation for me. And I love this quote from James Baldwin, who says, "You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive." So this way of the teaching, that allows us to transform our own deeply held pain and suffering to understand our relationship to the fabric of the world. So I think that James Baldwin was not just talking about books, but just talking about stories. The stories of who we are and how we are in the world. And I bring this to mind because what we repeat, what we share, how we see each other, how we see ourselves, is what are we feeding? What are we allowing to take birth? What are we bringing forth? What are we believing in? And we are in a time of crisis. We're in a time of, some people call it a poly crisis. Some people call it a meta crisis. I particularly like if we call it a meta crisis, M-E-T-A, we can also think of it as a meta, M-E-T-T-A, which is this translation of the Pali for loving kindness, that there's a crisis of not enough loving kindness. And yet this word crisis is also just a turning point. It's a turning point, and we can allow ourselves to feel this difficult, dangerous situation that needs our attention. And we know from our teachings of the Buddha that this place of strife, of stress, is the first truth, that this is what leads us often onto the path, that this is what brings us forward to practice this place of stress. And so I hold this place not as something to be avoided, something to be overcome, but just something to look deeply at. What is it that's happening? The writer, author who many of you are probably familiar with, Rebecca Solnit, has written recently that she says, "I think the spiritual crisis and the storytelling crisis are the same crisis. Capitalism would like us to believe that we're basically selfish individuals, private individuals, and that what we want most and need are things money can buy, lots of stuff, plus maybe some sex and some family and lovers in our immediate vicinity. What other views of human nature tell us, in fact, that the things we most yearn for our broader connection, community, meaning, purpose, hope, awe, these other things that capitalism is very bad at, which is why it would prefer we forget them. And this is where our practice points to. This place away from the drive of capitalism to get, obtain, to transaction, what's of value and what we want more of, into this place of connection, community. And so when we look towards the roots of freedom, we can begin to say, what is it that is my deepest value? What is the world that I want to give birth of as I share stories, learn other stories, learn the stories of the planet, of the earth, this connection to community, connection to awe. And so today I wanted to share one of the suttas as this telling of the stories. And I know it's not exactly in the language of the stories that we might know of, because sometimes the translations in the suttas are a little more staid than um, what we're used to in our storytelling. But I wanted to, and as was mentioned, I'm in the Theravadan lineage, and so I'm going to be sharing from the suttas and the early Buddhist discourses. And so this is from the Anguttara Nikaya, and it's called the Mulaka Sutta, and it's the name of the sutta is rooted, Rooted. And so oftentimes the Buddha was responding to questions that other practitioners of other sects were kind of grappling with. And so these are 8 questions that were offered, and the Buddha offered the response. And the questions was, in what are all things rooted? What are all things rooted? What are all things rooted in? And then, what do all things arise? And where do they converge? What is the leader of all things? What is the ruler? What is the superior? And so the Buddha says, all things, all states are rooted in desire. All things are rooted in desire. And so it's a very different orientation than oftentimes what we come out of. All things are born of attention. All things are born of attention. All things arise through contact. All things converge in feeling. All things have concentration as their leader. All things have mindfulness as their Lord. In all things, wisdom is superior. Of all things, freedom is the essence. So this is a very different way of engaging with the world. Rooted in desire are all things. So this place of the movement of the mind, of the heart, of the body, to wanting, not wanting, wanting, not wanting. And so in this particular passage, the word that is used in the original Pali is the word chanda. Oftentimes when we hear the translation of desire, we hear the word tanha, T-A-N-H-A in the Pali. And tanha is craving. And chanda is actually a neutral word, that there's this desire that can be in either direction, the desire for craving, for wanting, for greed. And there also can be this desire for liberation, for freedom. And so we have this movement, and then the next one is of the mind. The movement is of the mind, produced by the attention of the mind. Where are we turning our mind towards? Are we turning our mind towards this slew of this social media algorithms, the mindlessness, if we will, log of all the crises? Or are we allowing this desire for liberation, this freedom that is possible, to allow us for the possibility of beauty, the possibility of care? And so then we have contact is their origin. And this is also like just a different way of orienting ourselves. And so I think that this place of contact is really supportive for us. And so when we often will pay attention to the place of contact when we're doing our formal meditation. So when we sit down to meditate, we're like, contact. I'm feeling the weight of my body on the earth. I'm feeling the breath. I'm listening to each of the sense doors. So there's that place of contact. And so we're meeting the world. We're hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, smelling, thinking the mind door. And it's helpful to remember this because this place of contact is where things arise. And when we are lost, when we're uprooted, when we're swept away, if we can come back into the body, to the place of contact. Oh, here's the breath. Oh, here's the body resting on the earth. We can allow ourselves to reroute and reorient. So all things are rooted in desire, and then we have this attention, and then we connect with the contact. And then this translation of feelings is their meeting place. All things converge in feeling. Feeling in this is this word in Pali called Vedana, Vedana, Vedana. And Vedana is that place that when we have contact, in each moment there arises a valence, a sense of whether that moment is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And in that way, the mind then moves, wanting, not wanting, pleasant, I like it, unpleasant, I don't want it. And so there's this movement, and we can begin to see our minds in this practice. We can begin, as we practice, to see with our attention that our mind is moving to liking and not liking every moment. And it's happening so quickly. There's so much happening. And if we can begin, we can understand that it is not me, not mine. This is what the mind does. And then as we practice, we allow ourselves to have this continuity, this immersion, this gathering of the mind so that we're not swept about so much, this concentration. And then the mindfulness arises. And in this translation, mindfulness as their Lord, and another one, mindfulness as the ruler that exercises authority. And this is the place where mindfulness in this story is kind of saying mindfulness is helping us have that pause so that then we have an option. Is this a skillful direction of my attention? Is it going to be leading to the beauty and happiness and compassion of the world? Or is this place of my attention going to be leading to greed, to separation? And so this practice, and so this is where I think sometimes we forget like what our 30 minutes or our 10 minutes or whatever of that meditation practice is happening, but we can infuse it into our life. So then we can have those places of pause where we can really be like, oh, I'm not going to go down this road. I know this road, and I really want to make sure that I'm pausing and not continuing the mind in that way. And that's where wisdom, and so it says in one translation, wisdom is superior, but in another translation, it says wisdom is their supervisor. And I love that because like here you have wisdom like, I know where that leads, like that's going to go. We know where that goes. If you keep doing that, this is what's going to happen. And then freedom is the essence, is the core. And so as we begin to see these patterns, these habits of mind, then this freedom can arise, and we have this letting go, this release from what we have thought brought happiness. And so this is rooted. Oh, all right. I would love to repeat the list. So let me just read it again. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya, and I would put it in the chat, but I actually have it in 2 columns, and it will be really a little messy. So it's the Anguttara Nikaya. I'll put the title in there so you can search for it in the Sutta Central. The title is Muluka Sutta, which is translated as rooted. All things are rooted in desire. All things are born in attention. All things arise through contact. All things converge in feeling. All things have concentration as their leader. All things have mindfulness as their Lord. In all things, wisdom is superior. Of all things, freedom is the essence. So if we think about this place of roots, and this image of roots, one of the places that we can think about with roots is how that roots are actually what is bringing the nourishment from the soil. And so this practice is really turning us towards this: what is a nutriment? What is the nutrition? What is that we're bringing into our lives? And what are we offering that is skillful and unskillful to get nourishment from? Like, how are we acting? And so when we think about nutrition or nutriment, which is this term which is not something that we use very much, but is often found in the suttas, then we can think of both the sort of physical things that happen in the body and then mental. And we can also think internal and external, like where are we getting this nutriment? And so what it is that we're nourishing and what is it that we are accentuating. And so this is the thing that is really important to me, because in our understanding that we can train the heart and mind, that we have the capacity. We know that in science we talk about neuroplasticity. And I'm so grateful that we have this capacity to train the mind. And in one of the translations in Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's a translator for a lot of the Theravadan texts, he has used this term, which I find so helpful, of the uninstructed worldling, and I really like thinking of myself as like this uninstructed worldling, because that means there are instructions. And it seems so hard out there. Like, how do I orient myself? But there are instructions. And so I may have all of these habits of mind, which the Buddha has identified that where habits of mind are driven by greed, are driven by hatred, are maintained by delusion, by confusion. And so we have all of these habits of mind, and it is through this practice over and over again of being present, placing our attention, that we can have this cultivation of the skillful, of the beautiful, what we're offering our nourishment to. So what are our choices? What will I feed in this moment? In another sutta, Sariputra, who is one of the main disciples of the Buddha in the early Buddhist teaching, says, and what are the roots of the skillful? And so once again, you can see pointing to what underlies that which is skillful. And so here he says, Lack of greed is a root of what is skillful. Lack of greed. Lack of aversion is a root of what is skillful. Lack of delusion is a root of what is skillful. These are called the roots of what is skillful. So as we engage in this place of where do we put our attention, we can begin to look at in our lives, where is it that greed is lessening? Where are we less greedy? And this has been a huge practice for me because I can just see the mind moving towards wanting. I can just feel that sense. All of a sudden, I'm leaning into something. I'm wanting it to be a certain way. I'm wanting someone else to be a certain way. I'm wanting myself to be a certain way. I'm wanting infinite humans out there, and you know who I'm talking about right now, to be a certain way. And I come back right here. What is possible in this moment? If I move from greed, then I open up to generosity. How can I be generous in this moment? And sometimes the generosity is with myself. Like, wow, it is really hard right now. I need to be generous right here. So this lack of greed or lessening of greed is a place that we can bring our attention to. Lack of aversion is the root of what is skillful. So this is aversion is often what we use for hatred or not liking, and this is where that place of Vedana, of the pleasant, leads us to the wanting, and the unpleasant leads us to the like, ah. And oftentimes in our society, what we have done is we have just built up walls. The dominant culture, whether they're physical walls, keeping out those that we don't like, whether they're gated communities, or whether it's just like, I'm just going to get mine. This is mine. My family's mine. We're just going to wall ourselves in. This aversion. And there's some degree that we can say, okay, I do need to have something. I need some sense of like, I'm okay right now. But then how do I also allow kindness in there? Generosity and kindness. So lack of aversion is this place of meeting with care, meeting the world with as much care as possible. And the thing that allows me to engage in this is this place of, on the list, which it seems kind of, well, you could kind of overlook it, but it's this place of contact. And when we talk about the present moment, which is just a languaging of how we can practice, but this present moment helps us know that it is in this moment that I can act. I can consider a future, a desire for a future to be a certain way, but in this moment is the place of choice, of skillful action or unskillful action. So in this moment with whomever I'm engaged with, however I'm directing, this is this place that I can kind of be like, whoa, the big world. And then I can take a breath and be like, how am I going to meet myself right now? How am I going to meet this human who's in front of me? How am I going to meet this moment with kindness, with generosity? And then the last one is lack of delusion. And this is the hardest one by its very nature. Delusion, or sometimes we call it ignorance, is the hardest to see. Because by ignorance, oftentimes it's thought of like that we're in a fog. We're we're not seeing clearly. This wisdom isn't available. And so often, like, we'll be like, I can't believe so and so did that, or why did they do that? And we can kind of know, like, people are often doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have. And so this place that we all have this force of ignorance that arises. And so this practice of meeting ourselves and seeing the habit conditions, in that first quote where I talked about capitalism and how capitalism drives us to see everybody in a transactional way. What's the value of this person? What's the value of that person? What's the value of this thing? And then some people, I don't understand it, but like, how's one person here valued 7 billion and another person valued, for very little? Like, is that really the placement of value? The delusion that is present in how we're orienting. So these are what are called the roots of the skillful. And so we begin to practice and we begin to see what actually leads to freedom, to true happiness. And one of the places that I jokingly talk about with this wisdom and seeing clearly is how those of us who have been on the outside in any way, and for myself, it's as somebody who was born into this body and born into this understanding of the world that's very queer, Queer, queer. And that so like seeing clearly is this way that some of us who are from the outside, and however that might be for you, can sometimes see more clearly that wanting this linear accumulation of goods, this greed, is not leading to freedom. Like those of us who have seen like, oh, I actually can't follow along these ways that have been set up for me. Maybe it's because of your gender, maybe it's because of your race, or maybe it's because of whatever that you see from a different vantage point. It actually allows that opening to see clearly. And so for me, one of the places that has been really helpful for me, like I have felt really very lost in a lot of my life. Like, how did I land in this family that doesn't understand that I'm not this, I'm not that, like, but you're such a pretty girl would be what my mother would say. I don't understand. And I would be like, but what do you want me to do with that? Like I'm supposed to then use that as collateral in this capitalist society that then allows me to perform in a certain way. Well, anyways, as you can imagine, that didn't work so well. And so I feel really grateful that I was throughout this my own personal journey then be aiming not only to connect with the Buddhist teachings, but to have this deep connection with the natural world. And in my understanding of Buddhism, they are so interwoven. And so in our understanding of Buddhism, we see this deep interbeing of not self, that we are not separate. And so then we can also use this understanding of the natural world to see the same things. And so Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is a scientist, ecologist, and a member of the Potawatomi Nation as well, has written so many beautiful things about how we can view the world through this really deep indigenous wisdom. Excuse me. And she says, the trees act not as individuals, but somehow as a collective. Exactly how they do this, we don't know yet. But what we see is the power of unity. What happens to one happens to all of us. We can starve together or feast together. What happens to one happens to all of us. We can starve together or feast together. And it's useful for us to remember this place of collective understanding, that what is happening to us together is so important for us to remember. That it may not be at our doorstep at this moment, but it's happening in our neighborhood. It's happening in our communities. And so this uprooting of greed, this uprooting of aversion or hatred is so essential for ourselves and for our communities. And I like this idea of the roots as remembering that, we are connected through space and time and rooted in lineages of freedom. We're rooted in lineages of freedom. I think about my own family, and I have an Irish Catholic heritage and, came to the US because of hunger. Because we came here because of hunger. And so there's the desire for freedom. It may manifest in ways that are sometimes more skillful than other times, but this desire for freedom. And we look at that place. All things are rooted in desire. And we can be rooted in the desire for greed, more, more, more. That certainly is a mainline theme of a lot of our world. Rooted in desire of hatred, of othering. That certainly is one. But rooted in the desire of freedom, of wisdom, of seeing clearly, of the power of generosity, the power of kindness, is really such a place that will allow our hearts to rest. And so this place of understanding is so powerful. I'm going to share another quote from Robin Wall Kimmerer, and this is from her book, Braiding Sweetgrass. And she says, in the Apache language, the root word for land is the same as the word for mind. The root word for land is the same as the word for mind. Now just imagine we were oriented in that way, that the word for land and the word for mind, that we understood that we are earth. And then she says, gathering roots holds up a mirror between the map in the earth and the map in the mind, so that they're just mirroring each other. If we are mirrors of the earth, this is what happens, she says. She says, I think in the silence and the singing and with hands in the earth, at a certain angle of that mirror, the roots converge and we find our way back home. And I encourage us to remember this place of being rooted in freedom, to find our way home, to unhook from that stickiness of the overwhelm of those who point towards greed and hatred, to remember this rootedness in the earth and this legacy, that we are not separate from the histories of those who came before us. This lineage of freedom of the Buddha, other lineages of freedom, like Dr. Martin Luther King and the lineage of civil rights, where he says, let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Let us not seek to satisfy for our first thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred, he said at the speech, March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. We have these roots. And then there's our beloved Marsha P. Johnson, who is one of the first transgender rights activists, who says, no pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. We need to reach out and open the doors for each other. We are all connected. And then the Buddha says in the instructions in the Vinaya to the monastics, go forth for the good of the many, for the happiness of the many, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, for the good, for the happiness of all. Practice and teach the Dhamma that is beautiful in its beginning, beautiful in its middle, and beautiful in its ending. So we situate ourselves in connection with the earth, with each other, with all beings, and we act as best as we can in this moment to meet this moment with this practice of attending with kindness, attending with generosity, and knowing out of compassion for the world, this beauty that is different than the beauty of a new car or a whatever thing. This beauty in the beginning, beauty in the middle, and beauty in the end. So thank you. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I appreciate your attending and being here and being on this journey with me.
anyone has questions or comments or anything you want to share, you can use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen to raise your virtual hand, or I mean, or raise your actual hand. We'll be able to see it here.
Please, Jen.
I just want to thank you for the talk this morning. I spent many, probably 8, 7 day retreats at IMS over the years and time with Joseph Goldstein. And I'll never forget when I heard him teach the groundedness in the body retreat or meditation. And I loved that you brought that back again and to talk about the suttas. I would like to be able to find both of these suttas. Can you put the second one you talked about in the chat?
Yes, I can. And I'm embarrassed to say that I put it in this particular document without that link. So I'm going to need to get that for
I,
you.
I bet we
Um,
can find it
yeah,
with
I'll
just
find
the
it. I have
name.
it in another doc, but I cut and pasted that from another one, so I don't have it on this one. So my apologies.
No
Yeah,
problem. No
yeah,
problem
yeah.
whatsoever. Just the name with AI, we should be able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
find it.
yeah. So I think you can get that second one. Let me just put the quote that I got, and then you can find it. And uh, it was, and that one is actually Sariputra speaking about what are the roots of what is skillful, and so thank you. I'm glad to know that we have this overlap of practice between communities. I think it's very rich, and we can support each other in that. So thank you. Alita, did I say your name right?
Alida. Alida.
Oh,
Uh,
Alida, thank you.
yep. And thank you. This was very interesting. And I know, I'm ashamed to say I know very little about the Theravada. And so I always appreciate teachings on the sutras. Um, uh, One of the things that, well, one thing was, am I mapping the first list to the 12 links of origination?
Very, very, there is, yes, yeah, you're
Okay.
exactly right. Dependent
Okay.
origination it's not exactly a map, but there's so much
Yeah.
overlay. And,
Okay.
and I'm really glad that you brought that up because I love teaching about dependent origination because it really is this place of where we're disrupting that conditioning, which is what, we're seeing through the dependent origination too, kind of disrupt that conditioning. So yes, exactly.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that, I mean, as you were speaking, it was, I sort of wanted to hit the pause button. So I'm going to have to go back and listen to the recording to really plumb the depths of each challenge kind of thing, each internal challenge. And
yeah.
and the other one was the skillful routes to freedom
Hmm.
were negations, you know. Um, Cut the greed.
Yeah.
And as you said, you know, so it's sort of like I'm I think of it as in the Vajrayana when I'm dissolving a syllable from the bottom up. You
Hmm.
imagine a syllable like hung, and you're dissolving it from the bottom up. That took me ages to figure out how to do, and I have the same feeling about what's the absence of greed? And it doesn't necessarily immediately flip to generosity, but if, that almost feels like the easy answer. What's
Mm-hmm.
really what's the skillful way to let go of greed, which is, of course, now that I'm speaking, takes me right back to the clinging to self. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's underneath it.
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
And that's where the practice, like bringing in the dependent origination, the key point of practicing with Vedana, the pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And that is the place where when we can pay attention to like, oh, I like that. That's pleasant. And all of a sudden we're like flipping, like, let me find that. I'm going to get that,
yeah, yeah.
like
Oh
before I
yeah.
even know, that's a very simplistic thing, but we do that with people. We do that with ourselves. We do, that place and that this, even just and one of the things that I like about this particular list is that it brings in kind of almost like the seven factors of enlightenment in merging in with the dependent origination, because then it goes all of a sudden it flips to mindfulness, like insert
Yeah.
mindfulness here, and we can unhook from that place of contact and being
Yeah.
caught.
I mean, Anam Tupten teaches the pause practice, and that's that, you know, um,
Mm-hmm.
contact. Oh,
Exactly.
choice here,
Exactly.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very similar. Very
So
similar.
thank you very much. Lots
Oh,
of juice to muddle with. Yeah.
oh. Well, thank you for your practice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please, Dorothy.
I thank you. That was wonderful. Um, I'm always thinking about what's the middle way, and I kind of go back and forth. I've been very disappointed in a lot of the spirituality that I see as denial, and I'm going to just create my positive life over here and not think that I'm part of the rest of humanity that I've decided I don't want to be like. And so I can get, politically active. And then on that side, you can get really caught up in the whole thing. And, lots of people are into the hatred space. Lots of people aren't. And what I really admire is the activists who aren't spiritual and they're not tied down with um all all this other stuff. There's
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
some people I think they just automatically with regard to religion have something in their personality that allows them to allow without disregarding. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you just have any wise words about the middle way and how to get there.
Well, I love that you brought in the middle way, Dorothy, because I identify, one of the ways that I identify is non-binary. And so this place of the middle way is by its nature non-binary. It is the middle. It is not an either or. And so often in our lives, we're trying to put things into either or this box or this box. And I just know that, that is, these two extremes. And so as we stay in this middle way, and the middle, and there actually is no such thing as ever finding the middle. If you go into physics, when you have something and you have something and you have it and you have it, it's endless, it's infinite. There never is a middle way. And so that's the beauty, that your middle way is different than my middle path. This middle path is found by each one of us in the moment. And so it's such a beautiful expansion of how we are in the world. And then to me, it is this place that actually that our practice allows us to come home to ourselves and to be rooted in ourselves and to understand this capacity that each one of us has, that we're finding our way. The activist you may be familiar with, Grace Lee Boggs, who she has this quote where she says, finding our way out of no way. And that's basically kind of what this middle path is. There's finding our way out of no way. There's no way, and yet we are here, and here we are doing this. And so I just appreciate this commitment to this sensibility of knowing that, we will get agitated, we will get angry, and that those are just part of what it means to be human, to be in this relational field, that this place of allowing the fullness of our experience, not to deny all of who we are, and to also not then be reactive, not then just like jump over it, just to allow ourselves to be in that middle path. That to me, one of the practices that the Buddha spoke to, and like out of compassion for the world. So compassion to me is such a potent thing that supports us in doing this. The compassion for ourselves, in seeing all of the horror and the violence and whatnot, and the compassion for others. And so it's that deep-rooted compassion that is I've found it's important for me to practice that, so then I can be engaged with compassion when it's needed. So, well, thank you for your commitment and your engagement. I that is part of my path. Even as much as I find solace in the trees and the mountains and the ocean and all of that, I find this necessity to be in this relational field with other humans and find it so beautiful and valuable. So thank you.
I just had a quick thought about that when you said compassion. And I'm always thinking, it's like, what do you need now? Well, I need to allow. Allow, allow, allow. It's always got to allow. But to me, the word allow can very well be not compassion.
Yeah.
It can just be not caring. It can just be, I'm not going to allow that into my consciousness. Um, but compassion is a much better, puts my mind in a much better place.
Mm-hmm.
Compassion for myself and compassion for the others.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of sick people around and they didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, yeah. I love that distinction because, one of the things that a lot of us do as a trauma response is disassociate.
Right.
And
Exactly.
allowing, as you're saying, can sometimes mimic that disassociation and then be what we could call like a cultural bypass. That,
Exactly.
and Joanna Macy, who I'm sure you're familiar with, has called it premature transcendence. Where we just like bypass the world, and then we're like, and let me just
Right.
float on this cloud over here, and then you things down there, you work it out, and we know how that
Right.
works because we're all connected. I mean, and it's not to say that. And so this place of compassion allows us to be in the muck, in the compost, in with it all, that we know there's a capacity for transformation and we're in this together. Yeah, so and the compassion needs to turn here as well because it is really hard. It is really hard to see. It's hard to experience the level of violence and it's hard to witness. And so we need to include ourselves in that practice too.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Other reflections, thoughts, questions, please.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to thank you, JD. And you've mentioned a few times that you're in the Theravada tradition, that it's theoretically like a different lineage than ours, and it's true. We don't hear sutras as often as other texts, but I have to say, like when you were reading the words, I mean, I just um I still it was not hard for me to find context in my own practice for all of that pretty directly. And I just found that really beautiful, like it's not a different, we're not, we're doing, we're doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I thank you for, sharing the lens that you use the most. And, it was really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I think for myself, um, I have found a lot of solace in going back to the teachings, and I don't have a real I'm still learning in terms of the Pali language, which is the suttas that I look at, the language of the Pali, and which is the Sanskrit. And yet I really do a lot of looking at different translations and then looking at the Pali and having some understanding there. And for me, it's really important because so much of the translations have come through different cultures. And so, for example, in the Polytech Society was a very Victorian focus. And so, what does that mean for me, as a queer person, as somebody, what does it mean? This Victorian, very gendered expressions, often demeaning women, like looking at things and looking at how are they, and so when I look at the suttas and then I begin to look at different translations, then I'm not getting all of the commentary that has all of the other cultural overlays. And so for me, that is very enlivening. Um, and sometimes what you'll find is like in some footnote somewhere, you'll be like, wow, this is really interesting to me more than like what somebody has up here. And so it allows for our own relationship with the teachings and this way that and it can really take us home in a way. And so I as I mentioned at the beginning, I love to read. So it is a great benefit in this way that I like to study and learn. And then the Buddha encourages us to use the mind to understand the mind. And so there's all aspects of the mind, the analytical, the intuitive, and we bring all of that in. And I do think that there's that practice of like just even listening, like all things, when you listen, you can just sort of receive the words, all things are rooted in desire, and then just be like, wow, what does that mean? Like that's not a language that we hear kind of in the day to day. And so and just like you were talking about, like in the Vajrayana and you use different images and they can cut through kind of our understanding. And so this is just a different perspective. And so thank you for that reflection. Alida, please.
I'm going back to compassion, and this is more of a comment, but I've, in these incredible, in the political crisis, as opposed to all the others, I've been, challenging myself to find ways to be more curious about those who see things differently from me. And one of the things that has emerged for me out of this is what compassion really means. And how do I have compassion for the people who are causing so much harm? And people look at me cross-eyed going, they don't deserve it, right? And their actions certainly don't. But I remind them of karma, and many of the people I talk to have no clue. They're not Buddhists or anything. But I don't use the word karma. I say, well, do you believe in the law of cause and effect? And these guys and women are really doomed with the amount of negative karma that they are accumulating. And we can have compassion for that. Mm-hmm. Their future, who knows when that will mature, is not pretty. It's not pretty. And the Tibetans and the Mahayanists love to go into the six realms and the 18 hell realms. And having been there with one teacher at least, it's like, oh my God. So I can have compassion for that. And it really helps shift the need to go into hatred, the need to go into aversion and reject. I'm still rejecting that behavior, but it's clearer for me that that's what I'm doing, not the person.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the places that compassion is that the heart responds and the heart is moved. And so this really getting to know what compassion feels like in the body
Mm-hmm.
is such a powerful place because we have a really deep understanding of the carceral state of punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
most of us in our families, our institutions,
Mm-hmm.
I was a public school teacher, punishment, is what. And so we know punishment. And so then we think, you did this, I will punish you. I did this, I will punish you. Wherever punishment is a deep sankara, if you will, coming back to the dependent originations, it's a deep habit of punishment. And so
Mm-hmm.
punishment is a way of where and so compassion, knowing compassion in the body, we can identify something that we'd be like, this is, we could say, wrong, this is unskillful, this is leading towards hatred, whatever, however we want to label it. And then we can feel that sense of injustice. And then we can seem to think of like, I want to eliminate you, thinking in my mind, this is my thick phrasing. And then I can feel in my body accompanying that the contraction, because I also am wanting to eliminate all of that within myself that has ever acted in that way, that I want to punish all of these ways. And what is beyond the carceral state, that, like thinking about, being part of a lineage of abolitionists, like freedom, what is freedom? What is this? What is rooted in freedom that is beyond the, like, I will punish you now? And so compassion, knowing compassion is essential for that process. And so it's kind of like how, like, you want to go there, but you have to kind of go over here as on, because it's not linear. We think we're going to get there like this, something happens, I'm going to go, but where it's not linear. And so we're sort of circling and spiraling and deepening in that way. So yeah, thank you so much. It's so important. And I agree with you that we don't actually necessarily have to tell people. Like, I have found that I can just pause and connect with the compassion, and I don't need to tell everyone, oh, this is my little compassion pause over here while I'm meeting the world. I just kind of pause, meet the suffering of the world, feel it in me, and then the response, because then the response does accompany, is from a whole different atmosphere and grounding.
Thank you for once again bringing it back to the body, because that is, that that's what I need to do, is bring it back to the body and
Yeah.
pause. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that reflection. Appreciate it. All right. So we have a little bit more time before we finish out. If anybody has any other reflections or questions. Okay, well, I'm really grateful for this discussion, this time together with you all. As if you are interested in connecting more with me and any of the teachings, there's a link with my name. The Heart Mind Teaching is my website, and I know many of you are for Wonder Well, love sort of the natural aspect of that. So I wanted to particularly point out a couple of things that I'm doing next year, retreats that I'm leading. One at Spirit Rock on the four elements in June, and another one that I'm teaching at Oh, thank you so much, Laura, for putting the Heart Mind teaching in there. One of them is that I don't have these actually for next year on there. I'll be getting them on there soon, but you'll, if you are interested, you'll see that. Other place I teach is at Vallecitos Mountain Retreat Center, which is in New Mexico, and it's an off-the-grid retreat center up in the Carson National Forest, and it really just an extraordinary place to be in the middle of the national forest in the mountains in New Mexico. So that's happening next year as well, and that will be on my website soon for 2026. And then the other thing that I like to share with you, in case you are interested or you might know people who are interested, is that I'm part of a team that's been offering retreats for the transgender and non-binary gender expansive community. And so we'll be offering another one of those in August at Big Bear Retreat Center here outside of LA. So that's really a joyful expression of practice there. So if that's of interest to you or anybody, you have them look at my website, and that will be up soon as well. So what we'll do now is, as we finish out, I don't know if there's any announcements, Laura, for, okay, great, we'll offer dedication of merit. And once again, you're probably used to doing this in a different way, but I'll do my version and you can practice in the way that's supported for you. Knowing how deeply our lives intertwine, we offer this practice of our time together, all of the wisdom, all of the beauty, the skillfulness of our thoughts, our actions, our intentions. May we offer them freely to all beings everywhere. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings everywhere experience the peace that is possible. May all beings everywhere be free.